started.
Right.
This is Jackie, and I am here with William of Wolves at Bay. Wolves at Bay has a new album, Dissolve. It comes out the end of this week, October 10th. It's your first release in over a decade. So why is now the time to put out new music?
It's a good question. So I was playing solo for a while, and it was fun. I was doing a band with my friend Chris called Real Love before the pandemic happened. Then it happens, everything shuts down, everybody's kind of like uncomfortable being in person. He ended up moving. He got a really good promotion and he moved out of state, which is totally fine. I think just because like naturally how everybody came back into it with work and life, I ended up doing solo. I was like, you know what? Like I'll just do solo. Like I said, it was like still COVID time and stuff. Chris is in a new band called Spin World. They're amazing. They're out of Mass. And I was, as I was doing solo stuff, and like I wrote a new record, still doing solo stuff, and it felt like a full band record, and it felt like a Wolves at Bay album. And I think up until that point, doing other bands with my friends, even so before the solo stuff, then doing the solo stuff, I didn't feel that way. But writing this, like the energy, just like the feel, it felt like a Wolves at Bay record in a good way. It felt like a more mature Wolves at Bay record. So I honestly, I started reconnecting with them because when all this stuff's going on, you think about all this stuff, and we didn't have like a bad falling out. We just, people started like, hey, I need to make more money. I need to do this, blah, blah. So, and we were kind of burning each other out for a while. So long story short is I started hitting them up, started sending them, the record as it was, honestly. And they all loved it. And I was like, they're like, what are you going to do with it? I was like, well, I think we should release this as a record as a Wolves at Bay record. I think it's great. And they loved it that much. And we got together talking and jamming. And like live, it's like a whole new album live though, like it's like the album sounds one way, this album Dissolve, but live, it's got a whole new life to it too, which is awesome. So, but like I said, it kind of just happened naturally, I guess, in a way,
That must be nice. How is it an evolution of sound since your When I'm Dead EP?
I recorded that EP, was a very super dark time, and there was all this weird falling out going on. I was really burned out. We were doing stuff constantly, it was always like a show or like something, some touring or something. And that was going to be a full length, and it got dwindled down to 3 songs. I think that there is a more retrospective aspect to the music now, as far as like living through it, So When I'm Dead, I was kind of living through this really hard time, and I didn't know how to cope with it. I didn't know how to, verbalize it with anybody, even like through therapy. I feel like I just didn't want to. So I wrote about it, and that's always a good way to express yourself. But, doing like a more retrospective take now, giving yourself more time to breathe and kind of think about, what's going on in your life, and being able to articulate that with a clear mind, and realizing that everything's not your fault, and that's hard to kind of grasp sometimes, I think. So the growth from, think about, because I do think about that a lot, because that was the last thing we put out. I still feel more passionate about the music now, honestly, than I did at that point. But because I'm older and I've learned how to, cope with how I was feeling, like I said, I can look at it through a different lens, and I can almost feel it. I could feel that music and the difference with the new music, and I could feel the growth, just all around it. It's definitely playing the songs, like practicing the songs. It's wild, because I it's been a long time,
So it's interesting how, when you do play live, how do you see yourself meshing the older sound with the new when it comes to creating a newer set list?
It's a good question. It's so crazy because honestly, the trial and error, that's what took so long to get to playing live again. I'm fortunate enough where I have a bunch of recording gear, so we got to get together, put on headphones. We played a bunch of new songs. We played like almost the whole record, and we played old songs just to see the balance, right? We played a couple old songs, couple new songs, and see what was going. And once we got into like a live area, you can just feel it, So we how to mesh them together. It's just when you a good way to put it is when you have these keywords that you use throughout records, like thematically. And it could be the same word and the same phrase, but it's a different spin from the perspective that you're living it through, right? So I play these songs and because I step back, I'm able to like understand that I was playing them to almost like to a fault aggressively. I wasn't given like the songs as a whole like justice. I was too focused on the like emotional aspect of it. So when I said, when I stepping back into it, playing the new songs and the older songs, I'm like, wow, this older song that I thought was like too aggressive or something to mesh with a new song right after it, it's actually not. I was just coming at it with such a, like I said, the perspective that I was living in at that time. I was thinking of like, I'm playing live, I have to be this certain way and feel this certain way all the time. And I was like screaming through singing parts that didn't have to be like that. And they could still have as powerful of a message. Singing it the right way, right? It's like you take all this time to write the songs. And sometimes when you play live, it's good to have a different, like I said, a different lens on it. But that lens I was coming out was like almost like broken, It was like I was just like going through too much. So meshing them actually is easier now. Playing them, I actually feel like I said, I feel the older songs more now. And this is actually a really good question. I'm gonna tell you why, because it's easier for me to answer. I mean, because I just came from practice like an hour ago. So I just did this. So I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this is fresh in my head. But yeah, it's so funny. It's like there's a song Only a Mirror, the first song, Bedside Manner. It's like yelling the whole time, whatever. But playing it and singing it now, and then with like a new song after it blends so well because I'm like, oh, I was playing these really interesting chords, but I was just not paying attention to what I was actually doing. I was too focused on like the overall like intensity of the part, and everything had to be intense and like angry. And it's like you could still be as aggressive without yelling about it.
Maturity does wonders for things. And it's very interesting to hear you talk about that maturity as in kind of like this retrospective thought about your own previous music. I like that.
Yeah, thank you.
So what is influencing the songwriting this time around?
Oh man. For Dissolve, Kevin Devine, Nothing's Real, So Nothing's Wrong. That album came out and it really inspired me so much musically. I think he's an amazing songwriter. I've been seeing Kevin Devine probably since I was like 15, 16. And I used to see him at this place, The Space, down the street from my house. And his new record like kind of blew me away. A lot of movie scores, honestly. I love movie scores. I always loved The Dark Knight, right? When it came out, it blew me away, right? I was like real young. I didn't, when something, like I said, as you grow older, you realize why these things moved you in a certain light. So I realized that I feel like it started with The Dark Knight. I was like, there's a lot of movies like The Dark Knight I love, and I didn't understand it was the sound score. So I started listening to movie scores, soundtracks, movie scores, and I got really inspired by like There Will Be Blood, and what else? Like even like newer stuff like Oppenheimer, like the huge parts, long resonating notes, when a character walks in, and that Samia, like this is kind of like indie pop kind of stuff with like a twist to it, like Bartees Strange, like that kind of stuff. It really like when as you grow older, like you love the music you love when you're younger, and then you kind of some people they kind of stick with it. But I feel like in the last like 5 to 7 years, I got way more into like what's going on now, and I understand like oh, these are different sounds going on. So it's like I'm always attracted to, and I'm always like sparked by these newer sounds that these like a band might make or an artist or whatever. So, yeah, a lot of that inspiration. I do remember, like I said, listening to that Kevin Devine album. I have a lot of records, and I bought like I never do this. I bought like 2 copies of that album, like 2 different variants of it, because I was just like, this album is incredible. I bought one, I didn't open it, and I never do this. And I bought one, I didn't open it, and the other one I listened to like all the time because I knew I was gonna burn that album, like listen to it like to the ground. I still listen to it, and yeah, I think that from like I said, from a lyrical stance, from like songwriting in general, music, the sounds on the album, he like really did something special, and it really like sparked, a lot of songwriting in me again.
And are your lyrics this time around autobiographical or more referential to others?
It's a very good question. I think it's kind of a split. So I like to kind of continue on this, like, I feel like I'm always writing autobiographically. There's always something that I might not realize at a time, but then I look back and I'm like, oh, this was about this, and so what I do learning from that is there's a song called Pale Blue, the newer songs, and I say I found the Cure hiding again, which is kind of it's supposed to be a call and response to the song Hide Like My Friends on I Was the Devil Once, where I said like I hide like my friends, throwing out words in the middle of the day. It's like you're coming out of this like hibernation or this like self-reflection in a different light, and you're kind of understanding like what's going on. So more, like I said, definitely like there's everyone goes through a lot at once, and it causes a lot of trauma. And I think you look back at a lot of things and you can kind of reflect on a different, like I said, through like a different lens. And that the new album specifically, I can reflect so much more clear and articulate what I'm trying to say in a better like light, So yeah, definitely more autobiographical and some, like I said, some reference to old songs and purposely,
What messages do you hope your fans hear?
People go through, we talked about before when we first started, it's like, it came to having this, I hate to talk about it, but like, having like the shutdown, there was just so much isolation. And I think that isolation carried over till now for like a lot of people, and there's just so much, as generic as there's so much going on in the world that a big reason why I wanted to play again too was because I wanted to help people. And I that's like always been something that really means a lot to me. Like I really wanted to have something that people can connect to, and people, like as corny as it sounds, like people feel like they're not alone, like they're going through a lot in their head, and maybe they hear a line that I say that they can connect, and they feel, so I just hope that I'm able to help people,
I don't think that's corny at all. How does the single Guilt Cycle represent your more mature sound?
That's a good song. Oh, that's good. That's a good question. I mean, Guilt Cycle. If I look back at, 22-year-old Will or 21-year-old Will, I would never write a song like that. I'd be like, this isn't like fast enough. Nobody's going to like it. Nobody in my band's going to want to play this. It's not that I was ever worried about how an audience would take it, but I was always worried about how my band would take it. Like if I was never confident enough to be like, this is a great song and it doesn't matter what you like, it's a good song, you know. And that's really important to note when you're writing. It doesn't matter who likes what, as long as you like it. That's why you're writing songs, you know. So the sound maturing naturally, I think, just like I said, it's with me, you know. It's like that's how I grew, you know. I feel like I was so worried, and I was not comfortable with myself, and I think that Guilt Cycle is a good representation of how comfortable I am now, even like lyrically, you know. It's clearly about somebody dying, you know, and kind of like these cycling thoughts that go on in your head when someone passes away, and how you might be like, oh, I wish I said this to him, or I wish I was there at this time, and you kind of go through this, and it's a part of grief, you know. So I think that writing something with such heavy content to it might have been a little bit out of reach at the time, because I was going through that grief and I didn't know how to compartmentalize that into like a lyrical form, you know, almost. So I kind of, like I said, I was just like writing, and it had to be a certain way because my band won't like it. But it was really like I was just being extra hard on myself, you know.
And there's a lyric video to accompany that new single. What role do music videos have in 2025? We haven't had a channel dedicated to it, and now everything is like, if it's not 60 seconds or less, like we've already swiped through.
You know, it's something that people talk about a lot, and I hear a lot of, I hate to say it, I hear a lot of people who are of, you know, just bashing it, like, oh, it's never going to change. But I do think, for a person that's very pessimistic, I am optimistic that I think that people are starting to enjoy long form video format again. And I'm going to tell you why, because using Oppenheimer as an example, that movie is extremely long. Right? And that movie did incredible. A lot of movies that are like movies in general, people still watch movies, people still go to the movie theater. So bringing it back to like music videos, I think that what is cool is that you have to be more creative now in how you actually go about it, right? So it's like you can do a music video on your phone now. Like, it's nuts to think about, right? You can do a 30-second clip, but there's so much of that going on that you have to be more interesting about it, you know. Like, if you think about like a director, it's like Wes Anderson. Like, his films, that he builds whole worlds, like you can feel the world in these movies, you know. So I think that it kind of breeds, it weeds through the, you know, boring kind of like more clear cut stuff and gets people more creative. I think there will be a turn. That's what I'm trying to say. I think there will be a turn. I think that over time, people are going to get, you know, people are in general just getting bored of just like, oh, this is cool. It's like 10-second song, it's 30-second song. And I do see like a growth. I mean, I think that the music video in general, they're, you know, people are still making standout videos. They're just like few and far between. But I do think there will be a stronger importance in that, and maybe it will be stretched out more to long form, you know, kind of like think of like something like Thriller or something like that, you know, back in the day.
I would love to see the pendulum move to the completely other side and have more
of
those Thriller-esque videos for sure.
I feel like too, like budgeting too. That's a thing that I think it has a lot to do with it, actually. Truthfully, like I think that, you know, people putting money out because streaming doesn't really pay. So a label can't really recoup a lot other than like merch, vinyl, physical form. So I think that these kind of, that's a big thing I hear a lot of, like I said, like a lot of directors and writers talk about for movies. Like, they're not paying how they used to. They don't have these big exuberant budgets anymore, you know? So I think that also goes hand in hand with videos too.
And the music scene was a lot different 10 years ago. Do you feel do you feel an obligation to like be on social media or try to go viral, or are you trying to keep it as organic as possible?
It's a really good question because it's something that I do think about a lot, and I think that I think that that's cool. You got a cat. I got my cat's out there. Ezekiel. He's a big fat black cat. He's the nicest little man in the world.
Yes.
So I will say that you have to be authentic with everything, and if you want to post shorter clips, think, like I said, think of stuff through a different lens, a different light, get more creative. That's one thing, but you can't be like, I have to go viral. If I don't go viral, what's the fucking point of all this? It's like, I think that it's important to always be your true authentic self, and I don't feel the pressure, because there shouldn't be a pressure if you feel like your music can make an impact one way or another. I think, like I said, going back to it, years ago when I was younger, I'd have been like, I know I used to do interviews, and doing something like this, I might have been like, oh, like, why do I have to do this? But I think that it's important now to help people connect when people do feel so isolated, So I think that it's important to be authentic about it. If you're like, I have to post more on the internet, well, what does that look like to you? Not what does it look like in general, because if you try to follow a trend, you're going to be off. Like, you're not going to be able to do it. You're going to, like, people are going to see through it. You're going to miss the boat. Like, it's going to keep going one way, and you're going to be all behind. You got to go off the path sometimes, do stuff how you want to do it, and it'll catch up to you, or like it'll weave in and out. That's something like Jack Antonoff, guy's a great producer. He's amazing. He makes a lot of amazing records, and that's something that he said that resonated with me, and that I believe in too. It's like, you just got to do what you want to do and not worry about how it's going to look. If you want to reach an audience in a certain light, you shouldn't force yourself to go viral. You should just do how you want to do it online,
I appreciate that. What is up next for the band after the release?
We have like a bunch of shows lined up that I'm going to be announcing, or we're going to be announcing, shortly. We're going to play in not Beverly, Mass. I think actually it's Beverly, Mass. It's what's it called? Salem, Mass. Salem, Mass. We're going to be playing with our friends in this band Spin World November 21st. That's a Friday. And then we have our record release with our friends in Many Eyes and Spin World as well. We're going to definitely keep playing as much as possible. I have like a bunch of new songs going on, and we're all like really in it. Like, we're going to full force, like, do as much as we can, and hopefully make some cool videos.
Excellent. Well, stay tuned for much more from Wolves of Bay. This is Jackie. Thanks to In the Key of Change and Chorus FM. Thanks so much, Will. Appreciate it.
No problem, Jackie. Take it.
Have fun.
Have a good